me tell you something about myself. I belong to an underrepresented group in this kind of conferences. And the group that I belong to is women, and especially women with, let's call them mature women, okay? Women with more experience. Are there any women here with, say, like more than 20 years of experience? I would love to see a hand, please. Any light? Women. Okay, good. By the way, if you're sitting next to this woman, just turn to her and say you don't look any day over 25. That will help. And I was wondering why that, and what I found with friends and other women that were with me in a coding school and in the university and so on, that most of them has transitioned to different professions. A lot of them went to the sort of artistic side, like a photographer and such, and a lot of others also went into kind of therapy, okay, and coaching and that sort of stuff. And one very popular way of coaching is what is called NLP. It's not the NLP that we know, it's a neuro-linguistic programming, and despite the word programming, this is actually some sort of a psychological way. And what they do is what we know as guided imagery, okay, imagination. So you just, what you do is you close your eyes. Actually, let me try that with you guys. Can you just close your eyes and try to imagine, okay, not really working. Damn. Okay, I'll do that until this. No, if you can sort it out, that would be great. So, a clicker overly. Okay, so close your eyes and imagine a world with no dev tools. Okay, so guys, can you imagine a world without dev tools? Think about it. What would you do if you don't have dev tools? You would need to use alerts every time you wanted to test something. If you want to check your CSS, you would probably need to draw some, red borders around items and see that they work. And if your JavaScript doesn't work, well, mercy on you, who knows how you are going to solve it. And, okay, so, and then in 2000, okay, so you can open your eyes. We are not in this world anymore. We are in 2024. And the reason it's working now is because in 2006, this tool came out. Anyone recognizes it? Anyone knows what that is? I don't hear. If you need to shout. Okay, so this is called Firebug, okay? And this was an extension to Firefox that actually allowed you to look into your browser inside. And it was a whole different world. And later on, a few years later, when Chrome came out, Chrome was actually a mixture of a lot of tools. They took things from WebKit and so on, and one of the things they took is this web inspector, which was part of the WebKit. And if you look at this, despite the old look of it, it actually reminds us the dev tools that we know today, right? If you do inspect, this is what you are going to see. A nicer one. And that was great. I mean, this is a different experience. You are all front-end developers. You know what it feels like. You can actually look at the inside of what the browser is doing and work with it. And that was good for some time. But then a new problem came out. this is the problem that you all have in your hand or pocket, right? Mobile devices. And we could easily do that on our laptop or desktop and try and look into the browser. But how do we do that when the browser runs on our mobile device? And the answer was that it's actually extended the browser control, the dev tools, to be able to work remotely. So now you could control not only your local browser, but also a browser that was running on another device. And this was actually the basis to what is being known as the Chrome DevTools protocol. The Chrome DevTools protocol, which you are all familiar with it because this is what you work when you work in the DevTools, is a set of APIs that allows us to fully control the browser functionality. It could be local or it could be remote. And if you don't believe me, you can actually open this tab that is called Protocol Monitor in your Chrome, and you can actually see all the messages, and I don't expect you to read that, obviously, all the Chrome DevTools protocol messages that are going between your browser and your inspector and the DevTools. By the way, don't do it. It crashes your browser, it crashes your computer, you need to reboot everything. Don't do it. It's just here for illustration purposes. But this is very low level. And what the nice people of Google did, they actually took these low-level APIs and they wrapped them with higher-level APIs and in JavaScript for Node, and they called the tool Puppeteer. Anyone familiar with Puppeteer? Good. And you can see where the logo is coming from because you're actually managing the browser with high-level APIs. Later on, this team from Google, most of them, some of the key people, transitioned from Google to Microsoft, and they started a new project that is called Playwright, which is very similar to Puppeteer. It is aimed to automate the browser, but it was focusing mostly on testing. Okay, so it had a different focus on testing. So yeah, that is me, and after all this mess with the technology, my name is Barak, I work at Ubik, as we said, and I'm going to talk about some advanced topics of Playwright. But first, I really would like to know, who's using Playwright here? Whoa! That's good. Who's planning to use Playwright? Everyone is, okay, good. So yeah, great. So obviously the numbers do not lie. And if you look at the last 5 years, this is basically when Playwright started in early 2020. You see that it grows, it becomes really popular. Playwright is a tool for, as I said, testing in the browser, unlike Jest that Dennis was showing here, that is doing a mock of the browser. This is for real testing. It's actually, you could say it is the successor of Selenium, and later on of Cypress, and it's getting a lot of popularity. I've been working it for a long time. Just to show you here on the graph, this is where I started working on Playwright. And I was coming to people and saying, wow, you should try it, Playwright is great. And they would say, okay, so how is it better than Cypress? So what I had to do is actually go and write, this is an article that I wrote in 2021, February 2021, almost 4 years ago, saying 5 ways Playwright is great. And by the way, when I went back to this article, I realized that from the 5 things that I wrote, 4 are still correct, and 1 actually got a lot better. If anyone familiar, they used to have a video, now they have the traces, and everyone that is using Playwright is traces. So I'm going to talk about some concepts in Playwright If you're using this, it's probably going to be very helpful. If you're not using Playwright, it will be useful for you when you will start using Playwright, which hopefully will be soon. So what does Playwright do? It's actually a set of Node.js API that, as I said, with the Chrome DevTool protocols, it is running the browser. Despite the name that it says Chrome, it's actually now a generic protocol. And the Playwright team, because they have a lot of knowledge about browser, they actually extended it, and you can use the same with Firefox, with Safari, with Edge, which is Chromium-based. It's actually Chromium. And no, you cannot use it with Internet Explorer. And just to remember, this is a decision that was made in Microsoft. So if you're in Internet Explorer, sorry, stick with Selenium. And initially, when Playwright was released, it was actually, as I said, an automation to the browser. This is what it has. And if you wanted to run tests, you would need to take some sort of a testing framework in the world of JavaScript. These are the famous ones, things like Jest, maybe Cucumber if you're working BDD, Mocha, or VTest did not exist yet. That's why it's not on this slide, but it could probably take VTest and use it with Playwright library in order to automate the browser. Later on, the Playwright, they released something that is called Playwright Test, which is actually a test runner that is competing with the other one, but is aimed specifically for Playwright. So I will not talk about the runner. I will only talk about the library and how it works. So if you look into the documentation of Playwright, you will see that there are the Playwright library classes are the classes that allows you to get access into the browser. The way it does it, and this is a very different concept from tools like, mostly from Cypress, is this way. So first of all, when we look at the browser and start to untangle it, we will find these pieces. We have the render process, which is what we barely know as a tab. Okay, this is where the JavaScript and the workers are running. And on top of it, there are a lot of other functionalities that are part of the browser. We have things like the service worker, the network processes, security, location, inputs. This is what translates the input from the operating system to the browser, and so on. And when you work with things like Cypress, you would work inside the tab, inside the render process. But Playwright is completely different. It is an out-of-process automation. So it means there's something, using again the CDP, that fully control every aspect of the browser. And now there's some, and this is also where you bind the different language. And now there is something we need to understand. I mean, when we look on JavaScript, and it doesn't matter, you're probably familiar with it, it is asynchronous. And the way it works is that you have an event queue. The event queue is sending messages to the event loop. If there is some asynchronous command, it will go into the thread pool. And once it's finished, it will go back to the event queue. And the event queue is actually the part that is controlling the order that things are being done. Now, when we have this out-of-process automation, we actually have a huge challenge. We have a huge challenge because we have two different processes that run on two different times, and they are not working at the same time. And yes, there are real-time messages passing between these two processes, but the fact that there are real-time messages doesn't mean that one process can control the other. And if you don't believe me, you just have to think about an example of two things that have different timelines, different times that are running and send event messages. So this is an example of such. Okay? The fact that I'm sending real-time messages doesn't mean that I have full control over the other process. Okay? And if we want to see that, we can actually look into the API. You can run that in debug mode when you're running a Playwright test, and you will see that messages being sent from the node to the Playwright and going back both sides. If you want, you can even get more details, but again, unrecommended. So what does it mean when we are doing this kind of process? So it means that when we want to do something from our test, which is your left side, okay, the Node.js, we want to tell the browser that I want to click on a button, okay? And this is what we do when we run tests in Playwright. So we are sending a message that says click on the button, and then Playwright is responding us with real-time events, saying, okay, I found the button that you want. Okay, the button is actually clickable. We can click on it. And then it says, okay, I clicked on the button. Okay? And then you can continue this kind of flow. And here you can already see one of the huge benefits of using Playwright comparing to Selenium. It is this part that it says button clickable. Because if you worked with something like Selenium, you would know that a lot of time things will get very flaky because it didn't know how to wait for it. And here, the button clickable is actually the value of Playwright saying, yeah, it's called actionability, and it means I can wait for it. Similar things is when I want to get an attribute from an element. So I'm saying again, click the button. It will go through the actionability and say the button is clicked. And then I will say get the attribute from the element. And then it will return that the attribute is null. And why is this actually happening? The reason for that is that in order to make sure that we actually get an attribute, we need to make sure that the element exists. And the way we do that is we need to tell Playwright, because, again, this mismatch of the way the different processes are working, you need to tell him, make sure that the element is there before you continue. And the best way to do that with Playwright, if you're working, they have the web expectation. The web expectation is actually saying, wait until you will get this attribute. Maybe it will show up. So just make sure that you wait, and it will wait. After the button is clicked, it will expect to have the attribute, and then it will try over and over until it finishes. And one of two things can happen. Either it will find it and it will return, good, I found it, or timeout will occur and it will return that it could not find it. This is a more complex example, and I want to explain because I think this is one of the things that a lot of people that do Playwright fail when they do it for the first time. And this is something that is called transient element. So what is a transient element? A transient element is like, you're probably familiar with that. We have some button, we click it, we see a loader running for few milliseconds, seconds, depends on the speed of your app. And later on, we see the data showing up. So how does it work? We have the button that is being clicked. We have the loader that appears. Then some time passes and the loader disappears, and then the rest of the program continues. And let's say I want to test this. Okay, I want to make sure that the loader actually appeared and then disappeared. So you would go and you're very happy and you would write this kind of code. Wait button click, expect loader to be visible, expect loader to be invisible. Hey, that should work, why not? It's quite straightforward. This is exactly what I expect. Well, here is the problem with this kind of thing. You click on the button is clicked, good, we've been there, and then it says find the loader visible found, find the loader invisible found. But what can be the problem here? And let me show you the problem that can happen here. This is our timeline that I showed before. And what do we see here? That once we click on the button, and the two parts, the beginning and the end, are still the same. We click, we expect the loader invisible works. But when one process, right, one side of the process, the node, is sending the message to the browser and say, check if the loader is visible, one of two things can happen. It will get on the timeline either at the time when the loader is still visible, or, because again, this is completely not running at the same time, it can get to the point where the loader disappears. So, how do I solve this? What should I do in order to make sure that this actually works? And the answer is that I need to send, the node should send to the browser both the first two instructions at the same time, or right one after the other. It says, you should have the loader visible. It's not going to happen yet, but you should wait for it. And you should also click on a button. And then the first thing that will happen, it will not see the loader because the loader is not showing up yet, but it will say the button is clicked. And then when the loader is visible, it will already be waiting for it to show up. And at this time, it can send right away the message, I did find the loader. And then you can say, find the invisible, and then say, go back. And the way to write this code is actually, instead of writing this code, you should say, promise.all, loader wait for, and button click. You can do that as a promise.all, and later on you can do the await expect loader. Another way to do that, which some people find it nicer, is you create the promise. The promise will be sent to the browser, but will not be awaited for. You need to name it. Then you click on the button, and only then you await for the loader to resolve. Okay, I have 5 minutes despite everything, so let's quickly, another concept that I want to emphasize here is about selector and locator. Playwright is a great tool. Selector and locators are actually the method to find elements on your page. Because we are running tests on the browser, there are a lot of elements, and you need to find them. And there are basically two ways to do that. Good one, bad one and good one. So one of the things, the first one is to use a selector. Selector is actually a string that is representing an element on my screen. So here, the button, this is the selector. And Playwright has a huge variety of way to define the element. The very common one is you can use CSS. Okay, so something like button, you can find it. You could have something, you could have like element, CSS class, everything that you know about CSS, IDs obviously, and so on. You can use text. So by text is another way. You can say, this is the text that I expect to show on screen. And you can also use XPath, but you shouldn't, because XPath was needed, but it's no longer needed. But you can, let's put it this way. If you know this kind of thing, you might want to do it. If you don't, you're lucky. And if you want to chain, and the power of Playwright is that you can chain multiple selector. And the way you do that is by using these two arrays here. And these say, look for a menu. This is not the CSS of one arrow. It's actually two arrows. It means look for something that has the class menu, and inside it, look for something that has button, and you can chain it as many times as you want. You can also mix and match between CSS and text, so look for a menu and then look for a text submit, and so on. But if you look at the documentation, you will find that this is actually quite deprecated, and the right way to use selectors and find elements on screen is by locators. And what is a locator? Locator is a reference. It's not a string. It's a reference to element on a string, on a page, sorry. So the way we do that, we define page locator, giving it some information of what it should find, and then do the action. So this is an example of locator. Locators, so we have a simple locator where we specify elements like with CSS or text and so on, but there's also a bunch, and this is the recommended way to go, of what is called semantic locator. So you can do get by role, get by text, get by label, and all kind of things. Locators are also chainable as much as you want, just you can put as many references as you want and so on. But actually, locators inside are using selectors. And if you look into the debugger, you will see a locator element, and inside you will see the selector. Okay, so, yes, okay. A common mistake that I see with people that are working with Playwright, that they are using the await when they define the locator. This is something that you don't need to do, because locator doesn't actually go to the browser. You only do await when you go to the browser. And instead, you should just remove it, because the way it works, when you're defining the locator, it doesn't do anything. Only when you do the input field, it will go to, or click or whatever, it will go back to the browser. Okay, I think I'll skip that. Okay, good. So, in fact, so actually, that's pretty much it. Again, if you're using Playwright, yeah, no live coding. I didn't bring the ChatGPT to live code for me. So the conclusion here, if you want, is that you should use Playwright. That's the first thing, and this is not I'm saying everyone who's been using it. And thank you.